And welcome to the grill. What's happening? What's cooking? Journalist Charles W. Kim and Nicole M. Wells here with you, bringing you the latest in news and information. How's it going, Nicole?
Going pretty good, Charlie. It's a little chilly up here today, but otherwise we're doing good.
Okay, yeah, it's like 75, 80 down here. Everybody's like cold.
Of course.
So there's a lot going on this week that we want to get to. A lot that we want to talk about. The election, of course, is still humming along. There's new COVID restrictions coming to a state near you as cases seem to be on the rise. The death levels, not so much though. The number of people dying and number of people hospitalized don't seem to be increasing. Or if they're spiking, they're only slightly spiking compared to the number of new cases. But then there's also reports in the cases that some people are getting false positives. One singer said she got one nostril that tested positive, the other nostril tested negative. So, and then you have Elon Musk said that he had 4 tests, 2 were positive, 2 were negative. So, in a short amount of time. So, who knows what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really sound terribly plausible to me. I mean, one nostril tests positive and one tests negative. That is bizarre, number one. And number two, I mean, Elon Musk got 4 tests, like you said, and half of them came back positive, half came back negative. To me, that just indicates that, either the tests are contaminated or, they're mixing up test results or some other shenanigans, but it's just not, I don't have very much faith in that testing process. If someone as high profile as Elon Musk can get, 50-50 in terms of his test results, that doesn't have a whole lot of credibility for me, for the rest of us, the lower classes. So.
Okay, so, but the big story, of course, is what's going on still, the legal challenges in the presidential race. And the media, of course, is coming out, and they're all about Joe Biden. Big time. And, it's really hard that people are not questioning the results of the election when you have to believe, in order to accept these numbers, and I think we said this in our last show, you have to believe that Joe Biden is more popular a candidate than Barack Obama was in 2008. You have to believe that he garnered more votes than the first African-American president in history. And if any of you were alive in 2008, and your memory seems to be working and is not revisionist, you remember the general sense of excitement throughout the nation during that election. And that certainly was not the case during this election as far as enthusiasm for Joe Biden on the campaign trail. And yet the man is approaching 80 million votes.
Well, allegedly approaching 80 million votes. I mean, that's, if you actually believe those numbers. I'm not terribly inclined to believe them, especially when you have, pallets of ballots showing up at 4 a.m. from who knows where.
Well, I'm going to show you a graphic about that. President Trump and his team tweeted this out, and this is sourced to the New York Times with timestamps when certain votes came in over a period of time in Michigan. But before we get there, according to this article, 65% of eligible voters came out in this election. Now, that in and of itself is good news. In a country where generally it's like generally only around 40%, 30 to 40% of the electorate turn out. And that's, by the way, is in a good year. You know, that's when the top of the tickets like the president and Congress and things. You don't get those. There's off year elections between the midterms where you get like 21 or 22% of eligible voters showing up. But even at in the presidential year, 65 is like a 20% increase in the number of eligible voters who voted.
So what you're saying is that our normal voter participation is simply abysmal.
Yes, and that's been that way for years.
Oh,
And
I'm not saying it's new. I'm just saying that's a good label for it.
yeah, and now to believe that all of a sudden in this year, the whole world decided it was important enough to show up and vote. And numbers coming out showing that apparently Barack Obama is not very popular among the American people. They think he's a dog pile of some kind because Joe Biden kicked his butt. Joe Biden got overperformed Barack Obama, and we'll get into those numbers in a little bit. Again, we did them last week. We'll repeat them. But what does it say? That and meanwhile, Barack Obama's new book is out. Well, I guess no, even though they say 190,000 people bought it the first day, I guess that's just another lie by a politician because Joe Biden is so much more popular than Barack Obama. And supposedly, Barack Obama and Michelle are like two of the most popular people in the world. So I guess Joe Biden somehow, I must have been asleep or didn't get the memo. He must have done something pretty incredible, don't you think, Nicole?
Yeah, I mean, there's something incredible he did is really, very interesting. I mean, he ran a presidential campaign from a basement. I mean, that's never been done before in American history. So that to me is kind of a feat. But apart from that, I can't think of one thing the man's done, apart from, out SEAL Team 6 to the world, and put their lives in danger. But apart from that, those two beautiful achievements, I can't think of anything he's actually done to warrant such enthusiasm.
Now, in fairness, it could be because of COVID and because of all the mail-in balloting that was allowed that more people exercised their right to vote than ever before because they didn't have to leave their houses. That's a possibility, a very real possibility, and would account for why not only did Biden get more votes, but so did Trump. Trump got 10 million more votes than he did the first time out against Hillary Clinton. So I guess you could say, it's possible that is why.
It's possible, but to me, that's not very probable. I mean, to me, I mean, you look across the country at all these spontaneous, I mean, the actual official Trump rallies that were being held, he was everywhere. Everywhere you looked, there was Trump. I mean, 4 states in one day sometimes. So, I mean, he was kind of all over the map, just having his rallies and meeting people. But then you had spontaneous support rallies, of his supporters that just kind of popped up out of nowhere, that weren't like official. He didn't make an appearance, but people had them just to show enthusiasm and support for his candidacy. So to me, like, that accounts for, the increase in votes that Trump received. And the reason for me that there's so much enthusiasm and support is, all of the things he had gotten done in his first term. I can see your point about, mail-in balloting, and maybe that's why, the total numbers are so much higher than usual. And I can see that, but at the same time, I would never want to have a mail-in election ever again, because you get disasters like this where it's just, open to all kinds of fraud and discrepancies. So I'm really not a fan.
No. I guess, and the other problem I'm having is that now the Senate races are going to come down to Georgia to determine who has the majority. But in the Senate, Republicans could only lose when you count the vice president as a tiebreaker vote. The Republicans had a 4-vote majority.
Mm-hmm.
They could really only lose three seats.
Yeah.
To lose the majority vote, if as it looks like Vice President-elect Harris would come in and be the tie-breaking vote. But on the House side, the Democrats got a shellacking.
Yeah.
They are on pace right now, as we sit here today, to lose as many as 12 or 13 seats.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Yeah, including some seats that were flipped in California, of all places.
And New York.
Yeah.
Yep. Nicole Maliakakis in Staten Island.
Yep.
And I guess the problem I'm having a problem reconciling. The press is really great about talking about two realities in this election. And of course, they mean that, if you're conservative or Republican, you're living in a dream world. Biden won by so much. Fake gross. And of course, the Democrats, because they're always noble, true, and white knights on white horses, and they always do everything 100% right, while the rest of us plebes can't seem to tie our own shoes. They want us to believe that this was a strong, and I guess it could be, you could make the argument that this election was a repudiation of Trump, not a repudiation of conservative ideals.
Well, you could make that argument, but I mean, I heard a report, I forget where it was out of, but I heard a report about how somebody who was involved in counting ballots was saying that, in some instances they received ballots, in the mail that were not filled out properly. And so they would contact the voter and help them fill out their ballot for Joe Biden. So they received all of these ballots that were filled in for the president, for Joe Biden, and not filled in anywhere else. It was just the president. And then they just, help them get it done, get it in, etc. And so, I mean, for me, that could also be a reason why these numbers are just bizarrely off.
Well, and again, to be fair, as a journalist who's covered a number of elections, there is such a thing as ballot drop-off. Some people will vote in just the presidential race and they will leave the rest of it blank. Some will vote for just the national races and leave the state and local races blank. And vice versa. Some people will just vote for school board and leave everything else blank. I mean, there is no requirement once you get a ballot that you fill in and you vote in every office.
Oh, absolutely. It's just kind of odd.
And in a local election, for instance, in South Brunswick Township in New Jersey, as an example, the drop-off just between the township council and the Board of Education could be 30 or 40%. 30 or 40% less voted in the Board of Election race than in the council race. So, I mean, is that a possibility? Yeah. But there are affidavits being filed by poll workers that said that some of the ballots in Georgia that came in looked like they had been printed ahead of time. The little bubbles where you had to fill in on the absentee ballots for the candidates, or for the mail-in ballots, they weren't absentee. They're two different things. But that the poll workers in the affidavit said that the ballots themselves were in pristine shape. It didn't look like they had gone through the mail. They had been handled and filled in by hand. The bubbles next to Joe Biden's name, and oh, by the way, the votes came in 95 to 100% for Biden in these particular batches.
Shocking.
That the bubbles were exactly filled out, like a machine had done it rather than a human hand. in all of in these particular batches of hundreds of votes. So, and there is no chain of custody for these votes. There's no trail that you can go back on to make sure that these ballots were always, being watched when they were cast, after they're being cast.
That's minor technicalities, Charlie. Come on.
Well, and then coming to this, the graphic that you can see on YouTube. If not, we'll explain it to you. This was taken and credited from the New York Times, and basically it's when ballots came in Michigan, or excuse me, Wisconsin, and it was time stamped. And what it shows is the ballots that came in, how many for Trump, how many for Biden, and then the percentages. And all of a sudden, you go down, and then you see this like the way it's a bar graph that if it were a seismology graph, you see an 8.1 or 9.0 on the Richter scale earthquake around 3:42 a.m. with 149,000 votes that broke like 95% to Biden. I'll say that again. 150,000 votes come in the middle of the night that break 95% for Joe Biden.
Because that doesn't smell odd or off.
But, don't question.
No. The thought police are out and about and they'll come get you. Don't
question. As all the major news organizations say, Trump's false accusations or allegations of voter impropriety or voter fraud. Yeah, there is no widespread voter fraud. Nothing to see here. In 3 counties in Georgia in the last week. Last week it was 1 county where 2,600 votes were, quote, discovered, unquote. And they came in giving Trump an 800 vote plurality. So the breakdown was about 1,700 votes for Trump and about, 900 votes for Biden. So Trump won that particular set of almost 3,000 votes by a 2-1 margin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, in the last week, they have discovered similar things in 2 other counties in Georgia. A batch of votes breaking heavily for Trump. A couple thousand votes at a shot. Now, is it enough for him to make up the deficit in the state that he has? They're saying no. But the more they count the votes, the more they find big batches breaking for Trump coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you have the whole Dominion electronic voting system, which is, subject to discussion, being used in several states. But, oh no, they found the error and they fixed it. And all these other ones, it's just human error, a clerking error, typo error, whatever. But there's no widespread voter fraud. There's no widespread voter problems. This was a safe and secure election. Says the same people. The same political party that for 4 years told us that Russia meddled in the 2016 election. That was the only way Hillary Clinton lost. It was Russian bots.
It couldn't have possibly been that she was a terrible candidate and no one likes her.
No, it was Russian bots. Don't you understand, Nicole? All the Russian troll farms, bot farms, whatever, on the internet totally changed the way Americans voted, and it impacted all of 100,000 votes nationwide. Well, now this year, the Republicans are questioning about the same number or so of votes in all these different swing states. Mm-hmm. And we're living in a fantasy world. The election was secure. But was it 3 months ago, 4 months ago? They were worried about China and Iran and Russia interfering in our election. Wasn't all that what they were saying?
Yeah, well, allegedly I heard, and I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but I heard that that our servers for election data, at least some of them, are in Germany.
I don't know about that.
And I'm like, well, that's bizarre. Like, why would you? I mean, if it is true, which I don't know because I haven't confirmed it, but if it is true, that's really bizarre that we would have servers for our election information in a separate country.
Well,
I mean, especially when for 4 years you're sitting here, crying foul about foreign interference in our elections. Well, to me, if that would be one of the first things you would actually remedy if you were actually so concerned about voter fraud and meddling in our elections, is you would secure that information and bring it back stateside. You wouldn't leave it sitting in some other country.
you would think so. You would
Yeah.
think so. But again, and a reminder is that if you believe the numbers, then you have to believe, first of all, that Joe Biden outperformed Barack Obama in 2008. 2012, I'd be willing to give you almost, because there was a drop off in enthusiasm when Obama won his reelection compared to his first election. I might be willing to give that to you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
If you ask nicely.
If you ask nicely. But to say that Joe Biden outperformed Obama in all but a handful of states. Wow. And I mean, we're not talking where he overperformed Obama by a couple hundred votes. No, I mean, he overperformed Obama in the tens of thousands of votes. Joe Biden. The guy who couldn't even get 10 people to show up at a rally.
Well, the guy who also can't string a sentence together in a coherent way.
Yeah, but I mean, if you looked at the rallies between him and Trump's campaigning and Biden's campaigning, and the enthusiasm for Trump and the enthusiasm for Biden, and yet we're being asked to accept that millions of more Americans. I mean, of course, California and New York went for Biden because they're stupid idiot city dwellers who got their head up their butts. But two, that was going to happen anyway. You know, that Biden was going to win the popular vote because of the big cities. And that's it. That's all they could do.
Mm-hmm.
But you're really going to tell me that in Alabama or in Florida, Florida, let's take Florida, that Biden was going to outperform the Democratic Messiah, Barack Obama?
Mm-hmm.
By a lot. By a lot. I would say
I guess they're hoping at this point that the American people are so stupid that they'll willingly eat anything that's spoon-fed to them, no matter how rancid it seems. Because this just, the whole thing just,
it doesn't pass the sniff test.
It doesn't pass the taste test. Like, it doesn't pass any test.
No.
Not any test. I mean, and I also heard that Dominion voting systems were also used in Venezuelan elections. What does that tell you? Anybody who knows what's happened in Venezuela will tell you it's not a good thing, folks. It's not a good thing.
Well, as the Democrats continue with this, and by the way, they're criticizing, as always, Trump for not conceding and not giving Biden access to all the cookie jars in the administration for his transition.
He doesn't need to have access to them until the election's certified. He's not actually legally the president-elect. You wouldn't give some random private citizen access to something unless they've legally been entrusted with that information. He's not legally been entrusted with it. He's not president-elect because it hasn't been certified.
And to be honest, up until now, it's only been a common courtesy. The media announces who they feel is going to win the election. the person, usually the vote totals are not super close to where it's going to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And the person on the losing end usually says, okay, well, I gave it my best shot, and then the winner is treated basically as a president-elect. But that all means nothing, folks. Read your Constitution.
Get a copy while it's still available.
Get a copy while it's still sort of active. And look at your state legislatures and state laws. The presidential election is not over until December, no matter what the people vote.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution says state legislatures across the union can, in a manner they deem appropriate. Now, most states have either passed laws or have traditionally gone with whoever wins that state's vote to give their electors, but they don't have to constitutionally. The state of Pennsylvania could get together tomorrow, and even though Trump lost the vote, they could send all the electors to vote for Trump. It's a check and a balance on the people. We're a republic, constitutional republic. We're not a true democracy. That's why these people crying for the end of the Electoral College are nuts. They have no understanding of what this country is, how it was formed, and even more importantly, the why. They don't read the Federalist Papers, where the Founding Fathers laid out in great detail why it was important to have an Electoral College, why you just can't be governed by the mob of the majority.
Well, to be fair, you haven't had, that education in the last, I'd say, 40 to 50 years. The only reason I know about the Federalist Papers is because my father, is a history buff, and we had that information around the house. He always had books on, the Constitution, the founding of this country, etc. But for people who don't have family members that are into that sort of thing, you're relying on, your educational system. They're not teaching that. I would have never heard, word one about what's in the Federalist Papers if I relied on the school system. And I'm talking about the public school system, which is a disgrace in this country at this point. They're teaching more social justice than they are actual facts. But so, yeah, I blame that on the education system and the fact that they're not teaching civics or history the way they should be. They're teaching more nonsense like, what color fairy wings are we wearing this week?
Well, and this brings us to our next thing, kind of a good segue, about not learning from history. David Atkins, this blue checkmark guy, tweeted this out. No, seriously. How do you deprogram 75 million people? Where do you start? Fox? Facebook? We have to start thinking in terms of post-World War II Germany or Japan, or the failures of the Reconstruction in the South. Now, folks, if you bother at all to pay the slightest bit of attention in history class, if this doesn't scare the bejesus out of you, nothing will. These people on the left are basically talking gulag, concentration, re-education camps for anyone who disagreed with them politically.
Well, it either should scare you or it should make you angry. In my case, it makes me angry. That is a hill I'm willing to die on. Nobody is going to be telling me what to think or putting me in a little box and saying, all right, run along now till you're fixed. Yeah, it could go one of two ways. It'll either scare the hell out of you or it'll make you really angry. In my case, it makes me really angry.
But folks, my friends, I've said it before and I will say it again. And these people are, oh no, we're inclusive, we're tolerant, we're anti-fascist. You are Nazis. For real. Not just a word to throw around to insult because it's bad. No, you are Nazis. You are Stalinists. You're Maoists. These people that killed millions of people in the 20th century. And if you want to know something, you really want to know, calling somebody Hitler really doesn't really do much. Maybe Hitler got rid of about 12 million people. Well, Stalin got rid of maybe 20, 30 million people of his own people.
Yeah.
In China, Mao, he holds the record of the bloodiest authoritarian with 80 to 100 million of his own people that he killed.
Well, I mean, they're still doing it in China today. I was actually just going to bring up that, there's an ethnic minority in China that I forget exactly what they're called, but there is an ethnic minority in China that lives in slave labor camps, and the whole world just turns a blind eye to it. I mean, nobody is doing anything to help these people, to save these people.
They're all worried about Kim Jong-un in North Korea, where they can't even afford to buy a roll of toilet paper.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
in communist China, which is a rising power,
going in that direction.
Communist China is a rising power in the world, and they've been doing this for years and years and years and years. Human rights violations all over the place, plus tax.
Yeah.
And nobody cares.
No.
Well, Biden isn't going to care because him and his family are making millions off of China.
Well, nobody cares, and I'll tell you why. Because these ethnic minorities that are in these slave labor camps, I'm sure they're making those Nikes that are people, are walking around paying $700-800 for. I'm sure they're making all this crap that Americans want and need and feel, as some sort of status symbol. I'm sure that's where it's being made. Guarantee you. And that is why the world does not give a shit about it. Because why would you stop, the flow of labor to produce the goods that's making you money? Why would you do that?
True.
You would. But I'm not surprised for that reason. I'm not surprised the business world globally doesn't care. And I'm not surprised that America is drifting in this direction because, I mean, I'm sure at some point I would not be surprised in the least if it came out that for the last 40 to 50 years, our government has slowly been selling out the American people to the Chinese. I would not be surprised in the least. And I would not be surprised if that's why the entire political elite and ruling class did not want Trump to win, because he's not beholden to anyone. He has his own money and he doesn't care. And that's their biggest fear, is they need someone in there that is compliant, that will not out everyone who has done the selling out of the American people to the Chinese. So I'm not surprised we're kind of slowly borrowing their tactics in terms of what to do with people that disagree and that will not comply. To me, that's not surprising in the least.
I agree. Oh, we got to take a break just for a second. If you're watching on YouTube, stay with us. We're going to take a break to pay the bills on the audio side. Remember, this podcast is available on Anchor FM, Spotify. It's live on YouTube. And we also put up the link on Facebook. Make sure you like us. Like the video. Like the audio version. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know when we do a new one. And go to Anchor FM, and there are different ways there you can help support if you like our podcast every week. There are ways you can support us either monthly or one time. Take a look, and we'll be back in just 1 second. And welcome to the second half of the What's Cooking podcast. Coming to you from the Sunshine State of Florida and the Garden State of New Jersey, journalist Charles W. Kim and Nicole M. Wells. We're with you with our second half. And what is that going to be about? But the COVID bug seems to be coming back in full force this fall. And lots of states are enacting new restrictions on the holidays. And people are getting, I think, a little sick and tired of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you draw a line when the government is trying to tell you personally what you can and can't do in your own home, who you can and can't have in your own home. I mean, and I think it says something when there's people in New York State that are saying, no, we will not enforce this. There's a sheriff, I don't remember in what county, but in New York State, there's a sheriff that said publicly he will not comply and he will not enforce Cuomo's ridiculous regulations as to how Thanksgiving is to be conducted. Because it's ridiculous. He said, your home is your castle, and I cannot come in and enforce things that you're doing in your own home. So yeah, I mean, Jersey's the same way. Jersey is the same way in terms of trying to run your life, essentially. And I mean, especially it's so, to me, it's just so ironic because of the symbolism of Thanksgiving. We've been banned from, a lot of people still are not able to go to their churches. Been banned from worshiping the way that you see fit, which is what this country was founded on. And then, to top it off, you're being told, no, you can't give thanks, to your creator, which is what Thanksgiving is about. You can't give thanks to your creator for having come through another year safely. You're being told that too. So it's just, where does it end? Where does it end? And I think people have had enough. I certainly have had enough. I'm done with that crap.
Well, you're talking, in for instance, in Pennsylvania, because of the cases supposedly surging there. And I say supposedly not because I'm trying to dismiss the virus or what's going down with it, but because the testing is not turning out to be so 100% foolproof or for sure.
No, it's not, especially when they're conflating numbers.
Yeah, when they're conflating numbers, and if you look, while there has been an increase since reopening in a little bit in the number of hospitalizations and deaths, that depending on what media station you listen to, they say they're spiking. Well, not really. They're nowhere close to the levels they were in the spring. People are not dying like they died in the spring from this.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. But now you have New York, Governor Cuomo, and he's even threatening to send law enforcement literally to your house if you have a gathering of more than 10. New York, and New Jersey, the fascist governors, Democratic governors of those states, the dictators, have deemed that the people in your house should be no more than 4 to 10.
I mean, they're basically just asking for another Waco, essentially. I mean, they're asking, for that situation all over again, because they're trying to tell people here how you can live your life. You cannot regulate people's lives to the extent that they're trying to regulate them. They will fight back.
Well, there's only so much. There is only so much that people in the United States of America are going to, well, you know what? Forget it, I said that. Forget it.
No, there's
Forget
a small
it.
minority
Last
will
year,
only tolerate so much.
Last year, I would have sat there and said, we are a nation of free human beings who believe in the cause of liberty. And if it got to go too long, we would rise up and take back our lives. Well, it's day 250 what? Of 15 days to slow the spread?
Yeah, sounds about
And
right.
Americans are saying, yes, thank you, sir, may I have another? Yes, thank you, sir, may I have another? Because they're so petrified of a virus that the odds are 99.92% you're going to survive if you get it. 40% of you are going to get it and not even know you have it.
Yeah. Yep.
And again, when you're looking at this stuff, okay, when you're looking at, cases are spiking across the country, the highest levels they've ever been. Testing is going up. They're testing more people, so greater numbers are going to come back positive, but also greater numbers are going to come back negative. The infection rate is about 10%. So if 1,000 people are tested, 100 will be positive. Now, out of that, 1 or 2 may die. Out of the 100 who test positive, 8 or 9 are going to recover fine. It's not going to be pleasant. They're not going to have a great time, just like the flu, pneumonia, or whatever you can get just living your life. It may not be pleasant, but 8 to 9 of you out of the 100 or out of 10 are going to survive. Okay? 1 or 2 out of 100 will probably die. And they're going to have other things wrong with them.
Yep.
So there was one gentleman in Congress, a Republican, actually got up and he got Governor Newsom in California after coming up with these severe restrictions and all this. Well, I mean, some of these are getting crazy. They want you to go to a restaurant, and they literally want you to mask up in between bites.
That's utterly insane.
In between bites of food.
Utterly insane.
That they want you, and everybody has to be seated 6 feet apart. Now, if you ever seen a restaurant table in most places, I don't even know how you could do that. I mean, a party of 4 would have like what you would normally give a party of 7 or 8, as far as seating. Yeah. I don't know how that would work, but it's crazy. And now you're talking. In Pennsylvania, they're saying they want you to mask up during Thanksgiving inside your home.
That's just appalling. I mean, any Pennsylvanian who does that just needs to just walk off, to the slave camps now, because that's what they're prepping you for. That's insane. Like, if you're obedient to the point of that nonsense in your own home, you deserve what's coming to you. Like, I can't even stress that enough. I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. Why would you listen to that nonsense?
And again, folks, this is what fascists do. Real fascists. Not just say, oh, you're a fascist, you're a racist, you're a xenophobe, you're a this, you're a that. Those are great words to toss around. But none of you who use them on a regular basis know what the hell you're talking about. You don't know what a real racist is. You don't know what a real fascist is. Well, this is what they are. People who try to control other people's lives. All the Karens of the world are basically fascists. If you're worried about me walking down the street because I don't have a mask, walk on the other side of the damn street.
Yeah.
Don't get in if you're worried about catching disease from me, don't get in my face and tell me how horrible I am for not wearing a mask. Above being rude, being a fascist, being a jerk, being a sheeple. Above that, it's stupid. It's stupid. Back in ancient times, if I had leprosy, would you come up and grab my hand?
No, you'd run.
You'd run in the other direction. If you see somebody out and about without a mask and that bothers you, walk in the other direction. If you see a poisonous rattlesnake coming at you, you're not going to sit there and argue with the snake about how big its fangs are you? Well, maybe you will, and then hopefully you'll just Darwin out. Because obviously you shouldn't be spreading your gene pool around the planet.
It's interesting you bring that up, though, Charlie, the gene pool. Because, I mean, and I've felt this for a while, but this is a really good place to insert it. But, I mean, you got to wonder, with all of the reproductive technologies that are assisting all of these people in reproducing, maybe that's why we're where we are today. I mean, you have all of these people that have difficulty getting pregnant. I mean, it's astonishing just how many people are having fertility issues these days. But they go through all this time, this expense, this effort to get pregnant, and then they pass along their genes. Well, there's a reason you weren't supposed to reproduce in the first place. I mean, it's not like, it's some arbitrary decision. There's a reason why you could not get pregnant naturally. And it's probably because your genes shouldn't be passed along. But then, we as human beings, in our infinite compassion and capacity to screw things up, we sit there and say, oh, how terrible this is. You poor people, having children is a right. It's not a privilege. So we're going to fix it.
No, Nicole. No, you're wrong.
No. Let me finish.
My body, my choice. No, the only right is if your biological mother deems that you have a chance at life.
All right. Well, we're not including
if she
that
wants
issue
to
in there
slaughter
right now.
you inside her womb, she is perfectly right to do that. That's
okay.
right.
So we're letting all of these people, we're enabling all of these people who naturally cannot get pregnant. For some reason, their body is saying you cannot pass your genes along naturally. We're passing them along. So to me, that there's a reason they shouldn't have been able to reproduce in the first place. And I'm not trying to be heartless or not compassionate here, but there's a reason. Nature does not do things for no reason. It's not arbitrary and random. So to me, so maybe that's why we are where we are, because we have all of these people running around with genes that should not have been passed along, and have created, uber compliant individuals that don't value any sort of, liberty or individuality or self-dependence, and are so desperately in need of big government and Big Brother to hold their hand every step of the way from cradle to grave. So that's my theory.
Well, unless you're in New York and New Jersey and you're a senior citizen, then the governor and the government will hold your hand right to the gas chamber, basically. They'll send you, when you have COVID, they'll send you back to the nursing home so you can die.
Basically, yeah. I mean, in my case, it would be kicking and screaming to whatever pit they were going to shoot me in. But because I'm not going to go down without a fight. But
that's what Cuomo and Murphy have already done.
I'm sorry?
40% of the people who died in New York and New Jersey are senior citizens, and a good number of them, in the thousands in both states, were because the dictator governors up there sent them to their deaths in nursing homes once they were diagnosed with COVID in the hospital.
Yeah, basically. I mean,
she might have sent them off just like Hitler sent the Jews off to the Auschwitz and the other camps and gassed them in the boxcars. That's what Murphy and Cuomo have done in the United States of America in 2020. They're murderers. They are murderers. It was their executive orders and their mandates that forced the nursing homes, even though the nursing homes were not equipped to handle the COVID virus, to take these people who were sick and to treat them, and many of them died. Thousands died.
Well, no, so I mean, let me just clarify something that you said. So, yes, the COVID patients that were in the hospitals, yes, they got sent back to nursing homes, but I mean, if you already had it, there was a 50-50 chance you were going to die either way, especially if you were a nursing home resident, because generally speaking, you're not in the best shape. It's not so much those people that I'm concerned about in this whole mess of the nursing home and the long-term care facilities. The people I was concerned for are the people who didn't have COVID that were now infected by the sick individual coming back to the nursing home. Those are the ones that the real tragedy is, because they didn't have it and it was brought into their midst by this person who was already sick, who may or may not have made it.
But the plot thickens. I saw a news report today that elder abuse death in nursing homes is also on the increase amid the COVID virus. So basically what's happening is people who care for the elderly, who used to, in one case, one family member of one patient said their mother went from getting excellent care to dead in 3 weeks. And it wasn't COVID that killed her. It was dehydration, abuse, neglect. because these people don't want to get close to seniors who have anything maybe even remotely to do with COVID. That not
Yeah.
so that goes into the category of suicides and other deaths that the COVID response and lockdowns and things are having. These are more deaths, not specifically COVID, but because of COVID, they're taking place. And these are horrible crimes. If you're letting someone in their 80s basically become dehydrated to the point of death or neglected or whatever, that's horrible.
Oh yeah, and I blame the media for that. I blame the media for that because, if they were not sitting there as fearmonger cheerleaders, with their pom poms and rah rah, there's more deaths and more cases. These people, the public, which includes people that work in nursing homes, would not be nearly so panicked and fear stricken, and they would not be freaking out to the point that they are, to where they're letting these people dehydrate to death and not providing the care that they're supposed to be providing. They whipped up the frenzy and the panic to Black Death like proportions, to where I'm not surprised. I mean, it's heartbreaking and it's terrible, but I'm not surprised that there's people that are not providing the care they're supposed to because they're so terrified of the nonsense that the media has spun in this ridiculous narrative that, God forbid you catch it. 99 point whatever it is % of people survive it. What is the problem? You should be more concerned for these poor people who can't actually do anything for themselves. That's why you're there, to make sure that they can continue living.
Yeah, but that's not what's happening.
I know.
And that's sad.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
It's disgusting that is what happens. That's the real tragedy in this country. It's not, that people are dying from COVID. The real tragedy is all the other stories that nobody is covering. The deaths from despair, the people jumping from bridges because their life savings are gone, or their businesses have failed. They can't pay their bills. Their family members can't afford the medications that are keeping them alive. All of these things that nobody cares about because the media has done such a fabulous job of cheerleading the death, from this virus, instead of actually championing the fact that it has an amazingly high survival rate.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, there are things we should be worried about. Every day when you go out of your house, you're taking a chance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a guy here in Florida who got mauled by wild dogs. The odds of that happening to you or eaten by an alligator just as you're walking down the street are pretty remote. But are they possible?
Of course.
I mean, you're up in West Milford, New Jersey. There are black bears up there.
Yeah, I don't take the garbage out at night for that very reason.
I mean, the likelihood that most of the time you make a loud noise, you're going to scare the bear off. But that one time, if it doesn't, that thing can kill you. There are snakes, rattlesnakes, they can kill you. Cars can kill you.
The world is not a warm and fuzzy teddy bear, is essentially the bottom line, And
I think people forget, from the minute you're born, the second you come out of the womb, you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
From the minute you come out. Now, who knows when, who knows where, under what circumstances, whatever. Whether it's a gunshot, whether it's a bear, whether it's a car accident, whether it's a COVID-19, a cancer, whatever. Dementia, brain tumor, whatever. From the minute you're born, you're going to die. Mm-hmm. Now, you can live under a bubble. You can live under a rock and do whatever it is so that you don't have to chance being out in the world. You probably find something to work from home and earn your paycheck and never leave your room.
Yep.
But that doesn't. But then a tornado can come through and rip off the roof of your house and throw you up in the air and put a piece of glass through your head.
I mean, it could, unless you're Biden and you prepped for all of those things and you're staying in the basement.
Yeah, what's gonna happen when he gets to the White House?
Huh?
What happens when he finally gets to the White House?
He'll have a basement White House. The Oval
Well,
Office will just
you do
collect
have
all.
the bunker. You know, you do have the Situation Room and the bunkers there,
Yeah.
and
So
Secret Service. Uh my God. You know, every week we do this show, and there are times I look and it's like this will be the week, kind of when people wake up and something will happen in America to bring our country back. I'm not seeing it. I mean, now you're talking about with these new COVID restrictions. They're saying they now get a little of this, and you brought it up a little bit before. They don't want you singing or chanting.
I I'm like, you might as well just come take me away now because I'm not doing that bullshit. Like they're sitting there telling you, they're discouraging you from singing and talking loudly, amongst yourselves in your own home at your Thanksgiving gathering. I'm like, no, just no. Anyone who knows me knows that I sing, and I'm not about to stop because some asshole sitting in, wherever it is he's sitting, it's not Drumthwacket, I mean, but wherever it is he's sitting and pontificating from, I'm not going to stop because you said so. I don't think so. So you might as well come get me now because it ain't going to get any better. I'm just going to continue to be a thorn in your side because I'm not going to do it. So, yeah, it's absurd. It is the most ridiculous, arbitrary thing I've ever heard in my life. And, I'm so thankful that at my church, which shall remain nameless at the moment, you know, I'm surrounded by so many like-minded people. It's wonderful. I mean, it's pretty much a little oasis. We're the black sheep of the diocese. But it's a little oasis of people that think exactly the same way. And we're all just like, we're not going to take this nonsense lying down, and we're going to sing, and we're going to, gather in our own homes for Thanksgiving without your permission. And that's just all there is to that. Like, go take care of your own family and your own life and get the hell out of mine. But yeah, I've pretty much made that declaration that, I'm not going to not sing. So if you have a problem, just come get me now.
I'll be careful because they just might.
They might, in which case, it's been nice knowing all of you, but I'll fight like hell to the end. So
But
this might
so
be my last video testimonial. You never know.
so yeah. So again, we want to tell you if you like these podcasts, if you like what we're doing, then we want to make sure that you smash the like button.
But don't
Like it,
break your phone.
right? Share our videos. That's a great way of supporting us. We do have you subscribe, click the notification bell, all that kind of thing, and visit the corresponding links below to help us financially. And we'll keep it going. But I think for this week, we kind of beat things down pretty good.
I think we've instilled enough grayness in the world for 1 week. What do you think?
Yeah. So until next time, this is Charles W. Kim and Nicole M. Wells, and we will see you next time.